All right, so last night there's this thing called the Vote-A-Rama, and it deals with this massive spending plan where senators propose amendments and they talk about stuff. It's non-binding, but sometimes things happen that make news, and Cory Booker last night gave a very energetic and unusual response on the Senate floor in response to Tommy Tuberville's call to decrease funding to local jurisdictions that defund police departments. And then here's how Senator Booker responded to that.
I am so excited. This is perhaps the highlight of this long and painful and torturous night. This is a gift. If it wasn't complete abdication of Senate procedures and esteem, I would walk over there and hug my colleague. Can we add also that every senator here wants to defund the police, believes in God, country, and apple pie?
All right, let's welcome in now former New York Congressman Vito Fossella. Also joining us, Steve Rogers, retired lieutenant from the Nutley, New Jersey Police Department, also retired U.S. military intelligence officer who served with the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force. Gentlemen, great to have you both with us.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
I mean, so here you have Cory Booker, a.k.a. Spartacus, Vito, mocking Republicans who call out Democrats for defunding the police. Less than a week after we saw a police officer die in Chicago, which is one of the cities where they love to talk about defunding the police.
Yeah, and it wasn't just any officer. It was a 29-year-old mother who lost her life tragically. And sadly, that's become sort of routine, right? And it doesn't really matter what happens on the floor of the Senate. What really matters is what happens in the streets of Chicago or New York or Seattle or wherever people want to just be free and safe. And despite that vote, that every senator voted not to defund the police. Let's be clear about it. Defund means eliminate practically the police department. What we got to remember are that subways and streets and communities are still not safe. Mm-hmm. And we need to support not just the men and women in the police department, whether it be New York or Chicago or across the country, but we have to recognize that it's a system. They call it the criminal justice system. So the police could do all they want. They could put their life at risk. Tragically, too many have lost their life trying to save and protect us. But if you arrest somebody and they're out on bail by 5 o'clock to commit another crime and another crime, what difference does it make? We have too many people who are running for office in office who just feel that bad people can commit violent crimes. Right. And there's no consequence and no responsibility. So no matter what we do to help the police give the tools that they need to do their job, unless we have something on the back end, it's all for naught.
Right. This reminds me of the saying you hear from the left all the time: is silence is violence. And, you know, you might not actually come out and call for defunding the police, but if you don't stand up about those in your own party who do, then, you know, you're also contributing to the problem. I mean, this is your senator. This is your senator. Steve, what do you think about Cory Booker's statements there?
Well, look, that Vote-A-Rama scene we just saw reminds me of Wonder-Rama when I was a kid. My goodness, you're left wondering, what in the world's this guy talking about? To begin with, we must keep in mind, which he has failed to keep in mind, by the way, that the crime rates that are spiking in democratically controlled cities. The blood being shed on the streets of Chicago. Right now in New York City, crime is going up in New Jersey as a result of the Democrat Party agenda to defund, and as the congressman so well articulately said, to get rid of the police. So look, I'm stuck with him as a senator, but hopefully not for long. But at the end of the day, believe me, I see big changes coming in the midterm elections, and hopefully when his time is up, he's going to be time out for him.
All right. Well, let's talk about, you know, this whole issue, what it means for New York City and the state of New York. You know, defunding the police, the crime, obviously a big issue there, and it had a big impact on the mayoral primaries, Vito. Eric Adams, the lone candidate who actually, you know, voiced some support for the police department, he won the Democratic primary. Do you think there's a similar effect in the governor's race next year? I mean, you know, you hear about a lot of hardcore left-wing Democrats potentially running AOC, Al Sharpton among them, but you also have some more moderate folks. And does a Republican or a moderate Democrat stand a chance in New York?
It's going to be tough, and I'm going to keep things in perspective. Just about a year ago, John, and it still happens on the subways of New York City or the streets right now, just innocent people being clobbered, you know, walking down the street randomly, random acts of violence. That's happening right now, and it's great in the abstract, but what if it's your son or your daughter? or your wife or your husband, you have a whole different take on it. And Eric Adams, though he won the primary, he won narrowly and just beat somebody who was very much part of defund the police, very critical of the New York City Police Department, and that's reality. And, we have to remember that even if you arrest, like just a few weeks ago, there was somebody arrested in Queens for a violent assault. He had been arrested 90 times. And he was still on the street. Just a couple of weeks ago, there was a robbery. A guy was arrested. He was on parole and had been arrested 24 times, at least to my knowledge. So these are real things that are happening. Right. And unfortunately, John, to your point, there were too many in the other party who were just allowing this to happen. As we speak in Minneapolis, they're talking about abolishing the police department. So this is just not some abstract conversation, as I mentioned. These are real lives, too many of whom are being, just destroyed.
The conversation has morphed from back during Ferguson, Missouri days in the Obama administration, demilitarizing the police. You heard those comments. And now it has gone into full-blown defunding the police with some. And, there can be a line drawn between where it started and where it is right now. Don't you think, Steve?
Well, look, you bring up a very good point regarding New York City. Let's keep in mind, we have cop versus cop now for that mayor seat. You got Bill Pepitone, another retired New York City police lieutenant, who is running for office for mayor. So you have Pepitone on the conservative side saying, look, I've been there, I've done that. I am going to support the freedom and liberty of the people and the police. You have Eric Adams on the other side, who apparently is going to carry on de Blasio's agenda, which is defunding the police. Recruitment is down nationwide. Retirements are up nationwide. And I've said all along that, look, the way the Democrats are running the show here, there's not going to be any police departments left to defund, because that is a profession that people used to run to. Now, unfortunately, they're running away from.
Yeah, it is got to be one of the hardest jobs out there. And especially now, even harder when you're not getting support from your elected officials and your district attorneys and your mayors and things like that. And we see that in a lot of U.S. cities right now. Vito, Steve, great to see you both. Thanks so much, gentlemen. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, still ahead this hour, our panel is